Once you've set up an actions layer, you're ready to start adding action scripts to your main timeline. One of the primary purposes for ActionScript is to control timelines and animation. Before we get started, let's take a look at the animation we have in our current file. Go up to the Control menu and choose Test Movie. This allows us to preview our animation and our finished movie in the Flash player. Here you'll see our little RC car goes around the track, round and round. And what you're going to notice by default is that the animation repeats continuously. This is because the default behavior of the Flash player is to loop any timelines. Now, in certain cases, this actually may be useful, but in this particular case, when my car reaches the end of the road, I'd like it to actually stop. Let's go ahead and close our Flash player window. Now, in order to do this, I'm actually going to have to stop the timeline at the very end. To do this, we're going to create a keyframe at the end of the actions layer at the point where we actually want our animation to stop. Go down to your timeline and scroll to the end. On the actions layer, go ahead and select frame 130. This is the end of our animation and the end of the timeline as far as we're concerned here. And what we're going to do is add a keyframe at this particular position where we can place some useful action script. You can add a keyframe in a number of ways, either by right-clicking and choosing Insert Keyframe, or you can also use the F6 shortcut key. Either one should give us a nice empty keyframe here on frame 130. And now we're ready to place some scripts at this exact location. Go ahead and again make sure frame or now keyframe 130 is selected. And we're going to go ahead and open up the Actions panel, which we looked at a little bit earlier. Go up to Window, and from Window choose Actions. Now what you should see if you look at the bottom of the script window is it confirms that we're on the Actions layer, frame 130. So that little tab actually confirms our location and lets us know exactly where the scripts we enter are going to be applied. In this case, we need a special script which is actually going to stop the timeline at this particular case, and this is going to be the stop script. Go ahead and click inside of the script window and go ahead and type the word stop, all lowercase. Follow stop with a set of empty parentheses and a semicolon. Now if you type this correctly, the word stop should highlight in blue. This is the Actions panel's way of letting us know that what we typed is actually recognized as part of the language. If we change this, for instance, to a capital S, you'll see it goes black. The Actions panel lets us know it doesn't recognize this as part of ActionScript. And since ActionScript is case sensitive, we want to make sure that if we're entering something we know is built into the language, that it does highlight in blue. As part of the language, we always enter the empty parentheses and we cap off each line with a semicolon as seen here. Go ahead and close up your Actions panel for now. And if you take a look down at frame 130 on the Actions layer, you'll see that there's a little lowercase a there. That lets us know that we've actually got some ActionScript on this keyframe. Now what's going to happen is our playhead's going to hit keyframe 130, it's going to see that stop action, and it's going to obey exactly what we tell it to do. That's because in essence, ActionScript is really a way of dictating instructions to the Flash player. Let's see how our movie plays back now that we've added that stop action. Go up to the Control menu and choose Test Movie. So now we see our RC car comes to a complete stop at the end of the track and the animation no longer loops. So there's our little stop action in effect. Now you'll notice by default, we typically tend to test our ActionScript by going to Control and choosing Test Movie. This is probably the most reliable way of testing ActionScript because what it does is it recreates the same environment that our end user would see, which is a finished SWF file in the Flash player. Go ahead and close down your Flash player window and return back to Flash. Now that we've seen how a stop action works, what happens if we actually want to force this to loop in a specific way? For instance, we may want our car to reach a certain point in the timeline and then jump back to the beginning. Let's go ahead and scroll back to the beginning of our timeline. And let's just hit the Enter key for now. This plays back our timeline as we would normally see it. And you'll see there's a point where our car actually reaches this little crossroads here in the track. I may decide instead that I want my RC car to continue from the beginning and sort of do a loop around that little loop on the left side of the track. To do that, I need to figure out exactly where my car does that loop. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of the timeline. I'm going to click on the timeline ruler and I'm going to slowly drag or scrub from left to right. Doing this allows us to work our way at our pace through the timeline. If I keep dragging toward the right and I go frame by frame through my animation, I'll see right here at about frame 70 or 72, anywhere between these 2 or 3 frames, is where my truck reaches this little crossroads here. And I may decide that instead of going on to play out and go through the rest of the track, that I wanted to just complete that same loop again. So what I can do is the same type of thing we did to stop our timeline. First thing is I need to create a keyframe at this exact position on my actions layer, since I want something to occur at this particular point. So go ahead and select frame 70, and either right-click and choose Insert Keyframe, or use the F6 shortcut key to insert a new keyframe at this point on the actions layer. Now my goal is to tell the Flash player that when the playhead reaches keyframe 70, instead of continuing forward, to jump back to frame 1 once again and continue playing back from there instead. This will create a loop between frames 1 and 70. With keyframe 70 selected, once again go up to Window and choose Actions. This reopens our Actions panel. This time, however, we're going to use a completely different action. Instead of Stop, we're going to use a special action called Goto and Play. Click inside your script window and type the following, which is Goto and Play. Now notice the casing that I used here. The A in the and the P in the play are both capitalized. You're going to need to follow this exact same casing structure. Remember, if it doesn't turn blue, it means that we've either typed it incorrectly or we've cased it incorrectly. The blue lets us know that the Actions panel recognizes that this is part of the ActionScript language. After Goto and Play, once again, enter a set of empty parentheses and a semicolon to cap off that line. If you're curious about what the semicolon does, think of it as the period at the end of a sentence. For every complete line of ActionScript that we type in, we're always going to complete that statement with a semicolon. Very much how at the end of each sentence we type a period. Now Goto and Play by itself doesn't know exactly what to do. It knows it's supposed to go to and play from a specific frame, either further down the timeline or previously on the timeline. However, it's up to us to tell it exactly what frame to go to at that point. Inside those parentheses, let's go ahead and park our cursor and let's type the number 1. This tells our Goto and Play script exactly what frame to go to and start playing from. Now, when the playhead reaches this particular frame, which is frame 70, it's going to send the playhead back to frame 1 and continue playing from there. Let's go ahead and close the Actions panel. And once again, go up to Control and choose Test Movie. Let's preview our movie in the Flash Player and see what our new script has done. So we'll see here that the new Goto and Play action that we've added actually sends our little RC car in a loop. It starts from its original position, gets to about frame 70, and then rather than finishing the rest of the track, it actually starts over from its original position and does the whole loop again. So we see here how Goto and Play can be handy for creating a loop between different points within our timeline. Now we have one more thing to tackle, which is if we look at our RC car, we'll see that the headlights are sort of frantically going on and off. This is because the headlights themselves are a separate movie clip within our RC car. We're going to need to use the exact same methods to make sure that we can control the playback of our headlights so they don't frantically go on and off like we see here. Let's go ahead and close our Flash Player and return back. Now the headlights of our RC car are actually their own separate movie clip instances. To locate those, let's go up to the upper right-hand corner of our workspace and click and bring the Library panel forward. Locate a movie clip symbol called Headlight Beam and double-click on it to edit it. You'll see this brings us into the edit mode for Headlight Beam, and if we look down at the timeline, we'll see it's 2 basic layers, and if we hit the Enter or Return key to play this back, we'll see it's simply the action of the headlight expanding from the top to the bottom. Now the problem here is somewhat obvious. There's no action script actually controlling whether or not this stops, starts, or otherwise. What we'd actually like to do is make sure that these headlights are off until some other action later on in our movie actually turns them back on. So for this, what we're going to need to do is actually create a stop action at the beginning of our movie clip. This is a common practice to make sure that a movie clip does not play out of control, and that's especially the case since movie clip timelines, or any timeline, plays automatically. Go down to the timeline, click the New Layer button to add a layer above the mask layer shown here, and just like we did on the main timeline, let's double-click that layer title and rename this Actions. So we can follow the exact same approach we did with the main timeline by creating a dedicated Actions layer for our movie clip timeline. Here, however, rather than stopping the movie clip at the end, what we're actually going to do is stop it at the beginning, so it doesn't play automatically when the movie is launched. Go ahead and select the first keyframe of your new Actions layer, go up to Window, and choose Actions to open up the Actions panel. Just like we did earlier, what we're going to do is we're going to add a basic stop action, except because this is at the beginning of the timeline, it'll make sure that it doesn't play out until something else later on, for instance maybe a play action, reactivates this. Go ahead and type the following in the script window, which is stop, followed by parentheses and a semicolon. You should see a small lowercase a appear on the first keyframe of our Actions layer. Now what we also want to make sure of is that when this plays out, it doesn't automatically loop back to the beginning. This is the same approach we took with our main timeline. For this, we're going to have to create a second stop action at the end of this timeline, so that when our headlight opens up, it doesn't go back to the beginning in its off position by accident. Go ahead and select frame 24 on the new Actions layer, and either use the F6 shortcut key or right-click and choose Insert Keyframe to add a new keyframe at this position. You should see the Actions panel goes blank. This is because we now have the ability to add new scripts to this new keyframe. Once again, click inside the script window and let's add that same action, which is stop. Follow that with parentheses and a semicolon. Go ahead and close your Actions panel, and let's take a look at our timeline before we move back to the main timeline. So now our headlight beam movie clip has a stop action on the first keyframe and on the 24th keyframe at the end. This means that some other action will actually have to force this headlight to play and for the headlight to open up. The stop action at the end makes sure that the headlight doesn't open up and then jump back to keyframe 1 accidentally in a loop, which will actually turn it back off again. Let's return back to the main timeline by clicking the Scene 1 link in the breadcrumb navigation at the top left corner of our stage. Let's see how our new stop actions in those headlights change the appearance and behavior of our animation by going to Control and choosing Test Movie. So here we'll see our RC car goes along and the headlights actually don't go on. In a later lesson, we'll get these headlights to turn back on again, but for now it's nice because those headlights actually aren't flickering on and off. So we've exerted just a little bit more control to fine-tune our movie.